Another is GIS, Geographical Information System. In a very lighter sense, I call it Geo Iske Sare. I hope you have seen James Bond movies. If you haven't seen, you are not enjoying your youth. You should watch James Bond movies. James Bond is James Bond because he is informed. Within his car, he has all details, sub details. That is what makes him James Bond. If I can get similar kind of gadgets in my car, I will be James Bond, or you will be James Bond. So GIS makes you somewhat, much closer to James Bond, because anything and everything which is there on the ground could be represented as a layer, as a map on GIS environment. And if you have 20 variables, if you have 70 variables, if you have 200 variables, each of the variable could be represented as a point, line, or polygon, and can come in GIS as a separate layer. Many a times, people feel GIS is a map making exercise. It is not. It is typically a mislabeled child. GIS is not about making maps. GIS is about handling database. And I hope you all study Stat 6. So when you have Stat 6, you play with its mean, mode, median. You play with standard deviation, variance, covariance, and then you go to multivariate data analysis. So you try to dig out newer patterns, newer interpretations from that kind of data. So same happens with GIS. It handles a database which could be churned in, churned out to find out a newer kind of answers for same kind of question. That is what GIS is. As I said, you have point, line, polygon, so you have vector data, or you have raster data. Raster data is like pixels. When you take photograph using your mobile, you zoom it, you get to see pixelated. And when you read at the back of mobile, you say this is X megapixels or Y megapixels. It means those many pixels per unit area, that what you call as resolution. So that is raster data, and vector is point, line, polygon, and all attributes is there in the table, that is attribute table. Nowadays, people keep it geodatabase. It means one file wherein everything is there, so that repetition, redundancy, retrieval, analysis could be convenient. As I said, if you have 20 variables, you have 20 layers. But for a research question, you need only 5 variables. So you pull out only those 5 layers, try putting them on the top of each other, using any of the logic, using any of the mathematics, any of the statistics, and you can get answers for your questions. And those answers could be replied in tabular format, could be replied in a graphical format, or could be replied in a map format. It means the outcome of this environment is as a map, is as a graph, is as a table. You might get a boss who is good at tables but doesn't like maps. You give him tabular data. You might get a very smart boss who likes graphs. So you give him a graphical data. And you might get a very typical map-oriented boss, you give maps as output. So you can generate any kind of output. And when I say these maps, these could be 2-dimension, these could be 3-dimension, this could be multi-dimension. You can add on as many as dimensions onto that. That is the beauty of this environment. So it makes you smart. It makes your analysis smarter. It makes you much more powerful as the tools we need. So you need relatively specific type of softwares for this. You can't do it in MS Excel or DBase, those kind of stuff. Data is paramount for all kind of things. Hardware, it's not a big deal today. You need good people to work on, those who are trained, so that you can generate wonderful applications out of that. And probably, 20, 25 years back when I started this, we were working on individual machines, computers. We had floppy, we had CD, then pen drive was not that common then. So using that, we were working on individual machines. But nowadays, everything has come into a wide range of network, and you have more of a collaborative environment which GIS is looked at. You see your Ola app, Uber app, Arogya Setu app. You talk about any of the location-based service. Location-based service means where location matters. Those all are GIS apps in a sense. So that is how people try using these kind of things. And believe me, if you are working only at a plot level and somebody claims that I'm handling national database, all these databases talk to each other because a common line is there, that is the coordinates. Using those coordinates, you are able to link your database, and that is generally what happen and should happen. There should be people who are working at very local scale, plot levels, or maybe range levels, or maybe division levels, and there should be set of people who are working at state levels, or maybe regional scales, or maybe federal national scales, and these all data sets are ought to talk to each other. They are bound to talk to each other. But the point is, you develop that kind of scheme wherein these are talking to each other. So you can upscale data set, you can downscale data set, and you should be able to use that. There is similar kind of stuff which is called as GPS. I hope you all know this. This all started with Department of Defense of United States. They did it for the very strategic purpose. It was the former President Clinton in way back in 1998. He said that this should be made public. And since then, everybody is using GPS for civil purposes. And now most of the countries, including India, Japan, China, Russia, European Union, they all are coming with their own GPS satellites. It means the story which started with only 24 satellites or 6 orbital planes, you have hundreds of satellites which are there in different locations. And then you get more precision, much faster values, much more correct values, much more precise values. Again, it is strengthening you. But remote sensing without sensing is non-sensing. And many people do this. Why? Because they just feel, sitting in computers, painting some colors and doing some gigo garbage in, garbage out kind of stuff, they can generate many of the good things. So to make it sensible, you need to do something called as ground truthing. And for me, it is must. If you don't do ground truthing, and without ground truthing, ground knowledge, if you are processing your remote sensing data, you might get something very fancy, but which is not factually correct. You remember one of the rules was talking about opinion and facts. So you can opinion based on your data, but factually that might be incorrect. So ground truthing is must in remote sensing science. Without ground truthing, you might do something appearing very fancy, but scientifically, professionally, technically, almost zero. So ground truthing could be done in different ways. One is I personally get down onto the ground. Second is I put my researchers onto the ground. Or I have a field staff which is there on the ground and collects the information which I need and passes it to me. So ground truthing means in any of the ways you bring the ground reality. People generally feel, ground truthing is a very tedious exercise. It's not. It's very enjoying exercise. I had carried out in my early stages of career, and when I was doing research, I got opportunity to map vegetation type map for the entire India, and which made me travel all the forest ecosystems of the country. And that tells you, wow, what you study in Champion and SAIT, you actually see it on the ground. That makes you much more knowledgeable and confident about what you are handling. You need not to go to such kind of risky landscapes. I hope you have seen this movie, 128 hours. If you haven't, 128 hours. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Each of the youth should watch this movie. This is extraordinarily excellent movie based on the fact, a true story. So you need not to go to such type of landscape or ground truthing. You can go to very convenient landscape, provided scientifically and statistically those are correct. I repeat, provided scientifically and statistically those are correct. That is what is very important.